Let's dig into how a note is added to the Zettelkasten today. And I want to take the time to break down how Luhmann did it first, and then also the different interpretations since then and now. Hopefully we can see the reason for the mechanics in order to figure out how to do this in a digital Zettelkasten. Looking at Luhmann's actual permanent notes, you'll notice the alphanumeric numbering system at the top left corner. That's the only real constant in every note of his Zettelkasten. Other notes vary with topic headings on some cards, keywords sometimes used, relevant notes to other cards, and some are just index notes, strictly pointing to other permanent notes. I'm sure all of this is part of the learning process because even when I look back at my own notes, the first 20 or 30 didn't even have specific reference notes tags, since I was nesting them under a summary, with the source material actually on the literature notes tag. But going back to the alphanumeric numbering system, this is often called the Vogelzettel, a German word to describe the nested sequence of notes. Think about it as a thematic connection to the note before it or above it. It's a relationship. But even this concept has been split into two camps, which I'll talk about in a bit. For now, just understand that this concept has some nuance to it. And even in Sonke's book, he doesn't even mention the word, so obviously it's something we'll have to consider. So where does a new note go when you want to add it to the Zettelkasten? Well, Luhmann would have his slip box open, his literature note ready, and also a bibliography note to be added to his bibliography box. And yes, he had another slip box just for all of his references. So with everything ready, he would add the new note in response to the already existing notes in his Zettelkasten. It's interesting, isn't it? So if he had a new idea about something that wasn't already processed into a permanent note, then he would create a new top-level note, something like equality, only because it didn't fit underneath the conversations of state as an idea, right of veto, or control. And if he wanted to continue an existing conversation, he'd add it like a child block, extending the alphanumeric sequence accordingly. Look at note 71, responsibility. See how it has three threads or branches coming out from that one note? You have 71.1, concept of responsibility, 71.2, responsibility and organization, and 71.3, the link between power and responsibility. And again, this can splinter at any branch with the beautiful way he implemented the alphanumeric numbering sequence. He really was intuitively a genius. So, I had mentioned earlier about the nuance, about the placement of a new note in the Zettelkasten and how there's two different camps of how to actually implement it. First, you have Daniel Ludeke, who Sonke explicitly mentions in his book. And then you have Christian and Sasha of Zettelkasten.de lore, who differ on this idea of Vogelzettel. I'm not going to pick sides, but I do want to pull in their unique perspectives on this nuance to see if we can do both in Rome. Daniel, in his article, which I'll post below, talks about the idea of continuing a thread of conversation until it no longer fits, and then either branching off from an earlier thread or starting a new thread altogether. This is very similar to how Luhmann structured his own notes. But Daniel emphasizes tagging less because the branching sequence takes care of the thematic relationships. Let's compare that with Christian and Sasha, who have been staples in the community, bringing Zettelkasten to the world with their articles on the website zettelkasten.de. In their rebuttal article, which I'll also post below, they err on the side of relying less on the branching sequence and more on the linking of notes from these different threads, stating that, just like Luhmann, the location of the notes do not matter, as long as you can reference that note from every other point in the Zettelkasten. So what does Sonke say? Not much, really. Add the note behind where it fits, but if it doesn't fit anywhere, add it to the back and number it accordingly. He does say to link it to the other notes when applicable, and then also have it easily resurfaced by having it in the index. So, to wrap things up, all I'm going to say is that in Rome, you can do things that no other note-taking tool before it can do. Proof of this is in every new note-taking tool's marketing advertisements that always mention this word bi-directional linking. But that's not the only primitive that we're going to explore and utilize when applying the concepts of a Zettelkasten in the digital realm. And by the way, I don't use any extensions, hacks, or undeveloped power user commands. This is all Rome, all natural. Well, some sprinkles of CSS to make things pretty, but other than that, I like to hide all the complexity behind the simplicity of the block. I'll see you in the guided writing exercise.